Well, welcome everyone to our CafecISTO of this month. My name is Sabrina Urrutia. I'm the Communications Officer here at ISTO. And today we are going to have a CafecISTO International, which focuses on tourism and gender. First of all, I want to thank you all for your participation, especially to today's speakers. We have Iaia Pedemonete, Carla Izcara Conde, and also Hannelore Akkermans. Second, I would like to also make sure that all of you have your coffee prepared for today to listen to our speakers and to be ready for some questions. For this, feel free to leave your comments on our Facebook live streaming. You can leave all the questions you may have and also your comments on the comments section there. And we will transmit all these questions and comments to our speakers during the Q&A section. In relation to the topic of today, the tourism and gender, we recognize the relevance of discussing this topic through ISTO, and we want to do it now because we're preparing for Women's Day, which is in March 8th. But also we are launching our new working group on tourism and gender and equity, and we want to invite you all to join. This working group is coordinated by Iaia, so I will leave her the floor so she can present you more about it and her work. Iaia, you can go ahead. Iaia, I'm sorry, your micro is off. You have to turn it on.
Sorry. So hello, everybody. Thank you for inviting me. I will tell you why women are so important in tourism and what we could do as a working group on gender and diversity. And then I will introduce Carla and Hannelore. But first, let me tell you that I wish this be the first of many more times we meet when so many different institutions and associations and groups of women and men involved in tourism in different capacities will join together with useful proposals. And I am sure ever more will join because we will organize useful projects. And then I would like us to talk about what can be done to improve not the work of probably 150 million of women occupied in tourism worldwide, with a very important number of rural and artisans related, but the economic situation at all of all of us. Because now we are talking about everyone. This is clear. This is not a question of equal rights for men and women, but fundamental hub for economic growth and civil and cultural development of any country. So increasing gender equality will increase the development of the society. And so this is the same reason why we must organize a great working group on gender and diversity. So first slide is the next one, please. Okay, so this is my website now. I started more than 10 years ago, and because I was meeting so many women when I was traveling, but then at the first meeting of UNWTO about ethics and gender, they suggested to spread the issue, so I decided to start a website, and in fact, I ended up to be the first website into the resources pages of UNWTO in the gender section. But then you can go on the next slide. You can see I'm doing several things, different things, but my aim anyway is to send as many tourists as we can where there are women working in tourism in a sustainable way. Now, why are women important in tourism? We can look at it with data, like women entrepreneurs who are occupied in formal and informal jobs in the industry support alone 5% of the global GDP, but often in precarious employment, or with the UN who say responsible tourism occupying equally women can be the first tool to win global challenges. Data say, for example, that women are more than half of the workers, but mostly in low positions or of small or medium enterprises. Now, I will not go through every data. We can go to the next slide, please. The problems, next slide. Okay, no, sorry, before, go back, sorry. So now, I was saying the problems after the crisis are that the impact on tourism enterprises and workers, the majority being young women, is unprecedented. But the problems were there before, this is clear. The pandemic has just widened gender inequalities. So again, I'm not going through all these problems, but it's clear that the point I told you, it's very important to deal about gender inequality problems. Now, not all is so bad. You can go to the next slide, please. Because thanks God, women are full of resources, especially they're very keen and good when working in tourism. For example, they are resilient. They are crucial to bottom-up practices. They have soft skills. They are sustainable for natural look of the future. They have actually, we can really say that the market created by women in tourism is a peculiar and very trendy market because it's also what tourists like. So now that there will be a real post-crisis restart, we must consider that it will be only with gender equality involved. Of course, this is not me saying that, but all the experts and people working in projects with women. Then go ahead, next slide. Then now, over the last 6 months, studies and admonitions have been telling a few very important things that I have been studying them. So I recalled that the points on which everyone insisted are that women have been the most affected by the crisis, okay? That women should be given a proportional share of the aid, half of it according to some studies. That reconstruction after the crisis must make it possible to redistribute labor inequalities once and for all. That tourists will choose tour operators supporting the communities near and abroad. This is just to mention a few researchers. So there is no shortage of proposals for sure, because we have many studies from the World Bank to the ILO to several NGOs, etc. But this is good for us because we will use these proposals in our projects. From the list, for example, talking about CSR, that must be more specific. The data must be sex disaggregated. The gender budgeting is very important. Decision-making, technical skills, boosting leadership and management experience. So there are several possible lines to follow. Now, so what are the actions we could take as a working group on gender and diversity? So next slide. Okay, so now there is a very important thing to say about this, because we must thank ISTO for its unique value, that is its number and variety of associations. There are at least 3 things that we can do, and so we will be the first to start the process, being so many if we get all together. And we will be really looked after from many associations and organizations, international, and they will be all very interested if we start a process of putting gender in tourism into the spotlight. And ISTO will automatically be into the spotlight as well. So again, there are mainly 3 most sought after objectives. which are counting women employed or unemployed or affected by the crisis, for example, in this case in tourism, of course. Then the other line that everybody is going to follow are empowering women employed, unemployed, or affected by the crisis, again, in communities around the world, near or far, wherever you are in touch with them. Then the other thing is to disseminate the use of gender-sensitive policies and indicators. And so these objectives are required by all the most up-to-date guidelines in all sectors. And actually, they are also referring to global goals, which is very important. We can combine them in many ways. So therefore, for example, what we could start as a working group in gender and diversity as ISTO. For example, well, as I said, looking at data or mapping or investigating could be a neither survey or just a few data, but it will be one of the first examples, and it will be globally welcomed of studies in tourism. And if we will meet again with all of you for a richer conversation, I will explain each of these points and much more that I have written on a proposal. But now I am just saying the core of the points. So the second point could be, for example, to include gender impact assessment in our policies. And again, this could be done in a wider way or in a smaller way, just a few points. Then it's very important, we could think of projects, women-led, to counteract the impact of the crisis on women, and which comes straight from searching for data and trying to target into the real problems. And we could identify different partners, a network of similar realities. And then we could create a project model to be spread among similar activities in all over the world. Then on the opposite, an immediate support to women entrepreneurs could be just to start organizing, to follow seminars and training webinars with several organizations already existing I'm in touch with, such as She Trades, for example. And this could be straight away. Then another thing that is always to be considered is the digital and technology. One of the working group of gender first projects should be about this. As we know that in the post-COVID crisis, it has been evident that the gender digital gap must be taken into consideration when designing technology-driven initiatives to ensure that they can effectively target those who need them the most. So these are just, as I say, something that we could do, but now it's important that we all get together, because in that case, we will really all have an advantage. So as I said, it's not just because we are talking about women, we are talking about all of us, of the whole society. So I invite all ISTO members to join our working group on gender and diversity. We wait for many mails, so send emails to ISTO offices. Everybody are welcome, and I want to have many stories and projects from those who realize how important this issue is. We will discuss all together, and it's very important that we start sharing our stories, our experiences, our numbers, and making new projects. Okay, so that's all for now. Thank you. And now it's the moment to hear some stories and projects from directly from the voices of women already active. The first one is going to be Carla. Carla Izcara. She is working with Alba Sud, and she's one of her research timelines is gender dimensions in tourism. Her latest work in this field is about analyzing gender inequalities in the tourism labor market. So Carla, can you explain us something about your research, please?
Good afternoon, Iaia. Thank you for the brief presentation. It's a pleasure to be here and share this space with you. So to explain a little bit my research, I would like to share my screen. Let's see if it works. Let me know if you can see it. Yes? Okay. I'll put it like this. Okay, so they tell me it's working, great. So, yes, my name is Carla Izcara. I work for Alba and I'm here to talk a little bit about tourism and gender and the work we are doing in this field. So to start, I would like to recall the Montreal Declaration towards a humanist and social vision of tourism, where in Article 6, that you can see it on the screen, says that tourism sector should both provide employment and guarantee fundamental rights of all workers. So taking this into account, that in order to guarantee the fundamental rights of all workers, it is essential to analyze the sector from a gender perspective. And you may ask why? Because as Iaia was saying, it's a highly feminized sector and also with high indexes of precariousness. So gender perspective should be a must. So having said that, today I wanted to talk a little bit about our last research in Alba Sud, a report we launched last week or 2 weeks ago. It's a bibliographic review that we carry out with other researchers from Alba Sud, Nuria, Alejandra, and Marta. And it was basically to link two concepts, the concept of precariousness and the concept of feminization, and see what we could find out. And we found out 15 manifestations of gender inequality that we explore in this report. You can see the cover on the screen. And also it was based on the previous work that Alba Sud has been doing lately. Our research, the research we do from the association, has a differentiating factor that is crossing gender with other categories such as ethnicity or social class. And we've always tried to state the working conditions of working class women. So one example is the analysis and the support process of Ernest Cañada, the coordinator of Alba Sud, with the Spanish hotels housekeepers, the Kellys. So talking like deeper about the report we published last week, to do a brief and quick resume, the gender inequalities in tourism sector start with the gender division of work. I want to base my speech in this premise that it's gender division of work. So, and how this could affect to the domestic sphere and also the working space of these women of the sector. So gender division of work is basically dividing work according the social established gender roles, categorizing women in care, cooking, or cleaning tasks, and how this affects to the domestic sphere of this woman working in the sector. So firstly, some women experiment this first barrier, this entry barrier, that it's the social and family opposition to access to the tourism labor market, as they are asked to reproduce this traditional role of mother or wife. This links with the second point, that it's a double burden, that it's that when woman starts this job, they need to respond to their family domestic demands, but also the ones from the paid work, causing stressful situations and heavy workloads. But the question is, what kind of work do women occupy when they get into the industry? Well, so normally the ones perceived as an extension of domestic work and care. And this is like the tricky thing, that the perception affects to the workplace with the devaluation and the invisibilization of feminized work. It is assumed as an easy and a not important job. And so this is strengthening these inequalities that women experiment in the sector. This context, of course, affects to the working conditions of women. For example, the devaluation of feminized work is reflected on wages. But another factor that affects this gender pay gap comes from the very nature of contracts, as women tend to have temporary contracts or partial time contracts due to this need to reconcile private life with work life. And also it's one of the workforce that has suffered the most the outsourcing model. Another aspect I would like to point out is the barriers they find to develop professionally once they are working in the tourism industry, not only to occupy managerial positions known as the glass ceiling, but also, and even more important, the scarce mobility in their job positions, named as a sticky floor. Women are like block, are stick in this kind of, in this precarious work. So in consequence, all these obstacles seriously affect their mental and physical health, being the housekeeping department one of the most affected. And to finish this quick resume of the report, I would like to highlight the sexual objectification of women in the tourism industry. Not only, and I'm not talking only about the beauty standards that air hostesses, for example, have to accomplish, but also about the sexual harassment that women suffer, and they are very difficult to report and also very difficult to detect sometimes. And for some workforce are things that are very present in their daily lives, such as receptionists, waitress, or hostesses, is something perceived as normal, and it shouldn't be like that. So you may ask, what's next? So for us, it is very important to include this gender perspective to understand the tourism sector and also fill out the knowledge gap. As I was saying, our report was a bibliographic review, and we found out that there's a lot of work to do. So yes, it is very important. And also it is important to break with the hegemonic discourse of the sector that has always been to introduce tourism as a generator of employment for women, as a generator of opportunities, jobs that would allow them to combine this family and work life. That sometimes it's true, but they are also taking advantage of this systematic inequality and in some way perpetuating. So it's like a double-edged sword that we have to take into account. And also it is very important to do this political and social effort to create these spaces to talk about gender, to talk about tourism and gender. Also mechanisms to overcome the gender barriers, and also highlight the social activism that it's happening, as Ernest did with the Kellys, and also like support these processes and explain them and analyze them. And of course, now with the situation we are living, as Iaia said also in their presentation, the effects of COVID in the tourism industry, and particularly in women, as it's a highly feminized sector and very precarious, will be very serious. So we have to really take into account this perspective and include it in our future research and future works. So that was everything for me. Sorry if sometimes my English was not very good. And yeah, thank you for listening. I know it was a lot of information in a small and short time. So if you have any questions, we can talk later on. So yeah, thank you very much. That was everything.
Yeah, your microphone is off. You have to turn it on.
Okay, so thank you, Carla. It was very interesting, and I have 100 questions. So we will discuss about all as soon as possible. Now, let's see what Hannelore Akkermans has to say. Hannelore is a project manager, sustainable tourism at ViaVia Tourism Academy, and she has been collecting stories from women in tourism around the world to put inspiring and engaging role models in the sector. What does it mean? What has she done? Hannelore, can you explain us what are you going to show us, and what's some important point in your research and in your storytelling?
Thank you, Iaia, and thank you, Carla, as well, for the very interesting, concise summary of your research. Very interesting. Yes, indeed, I will start sharing my screen to have some pictures here as well. To show this. So this picture was obviously not taken this year or the past year. It was my last trip in 2019 to Uganda, where I stayed with the community, and this was my very lovely host, Margaret. Yes, we all haven't been traveling much or not at all in the past year, but still I had the privilege to talk to many women around the world and to actually feel like I was traveling many weeks to many corners of the world to listen to their stories. And why I wanted to do that was also what Iaia said before. When she was traveling, she met so many women, and then she really understood that these stories need to be told and these issues need to be addressed. And we have seen in the previous presentations that there are a lot of issues, but then we also know that there are a lot of great examples happening in the world of women taking charge, taking initiative, and doing the work. And well, we cannot all succeed when half of us are held back, is what Malala has said, and that's true for women. If we're not all privileged, then we can't go forward. And also for us as a society, if not all women have the same opportunities, we cannot go forward. So I didn't really used to be a feminist so much. It wasn't something that I really thought about a lot. But then through these travels and through meeting all these women around the world, I really became one, because I heard all of their challenges and their situations as well. And I realized that we just have to stick together. So with ViaVia Tourism Academy, which is the organization where I'm the coordinator, we had this project. We have this project of Women with Impact, where we get stories and we want to inspire other women in the sector or travelers as well to make choices to choose for women when they are traveling. So that was my personal story, my personal motivation. Of course, why we also should work on that with tourism is the Sustainable Development Goals, and gender equality being a really important part of that, and our sector having a lot of opportunities to grow, because we see a lot of issues as well. We know that there's a lot of room to grow. And when I'm talking about these encounters that I had with women on my travels, these encounters and understanding the world better is actually the basis of our ViaVia Travelers Cafes, which is a network that we have worldwide of social enterprises. You can see here on the map a bit that they're a bit spread everywhere. And social enterprises that are cafes, restaurants, hotels, tour operating businesses, shops, art expositions, all different clusters like that, with more than 300 people working there worldwide. And all with one vision and mission of sustainable tourism, but also all very unique to their own local context and local needs. So today I've chosen a few stories from these ViaVias around the world of where women have the center stage and are empowered or more so empowering themselves. So the first one is in Indonesia, where you can see here a lot of women on the picture that work at the ViaVia Cafe in Yogyakarta. And you see there's a lot of women working here, and most of the managerial positions are held by women in this place, which is quite different from other enterprises in this area, since we're dealing with quite a conservative and male-led society over there. So a lot of opportunities there for higher positions, to not stay on this sticky floor that we've been talking about, and to develop themselves, and also a special interest or a special sensitivity to LGBTQIA groups that are welcome there. So there are transgendered guides, there are artists from this community and groups that are supported and that can be active from this place. And I talked with Uji from ViaVia Yogyakarta, and she told me, like you can see what she said here, she told me that it's really not easy as a woman there and to be heard. And she and her team of women in Yogyakarta have the motivation to break down the stereotypes in that culture, and to connect women in Indonesia, but also around the world, to work on this topic. I will actually, for the people that are watching and might be interested, on the 25th of March, I will have a talk, an event with Uji. I will interview her on a live session with Impact Travel Alliance on the 25th of March. And the next story is from Rwanda, which is a partner from the ViaVia in Kigali, in the area of Kigali, Nyamirambo, where there's a women's center that was started by women, for women, first started to combat illiteracy that was there. So they started holding classes, educating each other, and making crafts, as you can see here, very nice crafts. And then they also went into tourism to involve tourists in their activities, to do community tours, to tell them about their situation, and to connect with women worldwide. And Marie-Aimée Umugeni was the one that started this. And she told me that it's really important that women are involved in the tourism business and that they become entrepreneurs. This is also it's not just purely a nonprofit, it's really an enterprise, a social enterprise, just like the ViaVias themselves are. And she really believes that women will be the ones to put the society, the community, the country further, because they don't think only about themselves, but they think about the next generations, they think about their families, and they really want to build a better future. And a third example is the organization Amal, that is based in Morocco, that is a partner of the ViaVia Cafe in Marrakesh. And what they do is they focus on women who also in this rather patriarchal culture have been marginalized because they became divorced, or they had difficult social or economic status. And they get the hospitality training to work in hospitality, in restaurants, in cafes, in hotels. And they also do cooking workshops. So you can do female-led experiences with them, where you can also talk with them about their experiences, their stories. They teach you to cook very nice Moroccan food. And I know what I'm talking about because I have been there, and I have cooked the most amazing tagine actually with my mother, who is here on the picture. So it was a very nice all women experience, and really one of the experiences in all my travels that have stuck with me, because you have this instant universal connection of femininity and of understanding each other in this kind of level. Amal was founded by Nora Belachian as a response of many difficulties that women were facing in marginalized positions. And they started very small, and now it's really a big center that trains these women and gives them, empowers them and gives them a lot of opportunities. So these are just a few of my stories of many more that I have from also in Nepal, from human trafficked women that are being trained as guides, as to complete all female ranger teams in African national parks, or initiatives in Peru, for example, for mothers. So very inspiring, and of course it's now difficult and very difficult, as we all know, and as the data also show, that the crisis is hitting women the hardest, and the inequalities that were already there are aggravated a lot. But there are still hopeful initiatives. Also, just a warm recommendation, if you feel very warmly about any of these initiatives, they're also free, to support them. You can see on their websites, they can all use some extra support these days. So I heard Iaia and Carla speak of some great recommendations for the future, and I can only agree with that. I think to build back better in the future, women will be at the heart of it, because they are resilient, because they are often the first ones to take initiative to bring their community further, to support. I've heard many very inspiring and creative stories for local support that were led by women in tourism for their own communities. So we believe that if we focus on these points, that it will be very important and crucial in the future to build back better, to focus on female leadership, so that there's decision-making by women, to focus on social entrepreneurship, to get the whole community involved, to give focus to grassroots initiatives led by women, to invest in training, to listen to their stories and to listen to what women need around the world, and to connect them also across borders. And that's something that we are doing today already also, and with this working group of ISTO. To end, I spoke with Sina Benchik from Intrepid Travels, a Moroccan lady who has done a lot for female guides in Morocco and in the North Africa, the Middle East. And she really believes that if there's one industry where we can make it happen, where we can fight gender inequality, it could be the tourism sector, and we have a responsibility to take there. So thank you. You can always email me on my contacts, and thank you for listening. So back to you, Iaia.
Thank you, Hannelore. Yeah, you are right. This is very interesting. I have been in touch with Marie in Rwanda as well. She's also in our map, in my articles, in my website, and the same with Zina and several other women. And what I think it's important, but it can be very interesting, to focus on those projects from the grassroots who came out better and are now involving more and more women to study and to use the same maybe guidelines that they have been using. And then, of course, one point that I always think is important, that we must not just stop in the normal, simple, basic jobs that women are usually doing in tourism, but we must really ask them what they want to do, check what they can do, what they know how to do, and then, go on with kind of trainings and all the rest. But there are so many very interesting ways to make projects, which is now, of course, it's long to talk about it, but it's great to share examples, and because they are really protagonists. But when we talk about women, we always talk about communities. And I think this is very, very interesting, is an interesting point that maybe tourists don't realize that. But then when they go in places, they realize, they feel that the results of that kind of organization, of community-based. But anyway, I see that there is a question for Carla. And so, Carla, can you tell us, do you think that the sexual objectification of women is different in the tourism sector compared to other sectors? Difficult question.
Okay, yes. Well, actually, this is a complicated topic in the ones we've started our research in this report. But I think that yes, not only this objectification it's in women's working on the tourism industry, as I said before, that some of them just make it in their daily life to accept some kind of comments or this kind of relationship that you establish with the client, as it's an industry that they always tell you that the client has the reason, it's something to please, and these situations sometimes end up in this kind of abuse. And moreover, I think that for some destinations, the image of this exotic woman, it's also been used, and this doesn't help, of course. And yeah, also because of the devaluation of the tasks that women normally carry out in the sector, as cleaning, cooking, or doing this like attention to the client, this may worsen the situation for women in this sector. It's something that we suffer everywhere, but in the tourism sector, I think that it's even worse.
And it comes very similar to another question that for you, because I actually think that it depends very much from which country we are talking about. And I mean, there are several other issues that are intersecting in all these matters here.
Yes, of course.
Yeah. But the second question, it says, what actions would you suggest to counteract the hegemonic discourse on tourism about tourism and employment? So, the hegemonic discourse on tourism about tourism and employment. Have you studied this subject as well?
Yes. What I was saying on my conclusions is that many times the tourism sector has like cover behind this discourse of generating jobs, and the question is to go further and ask what kind of jobs the industry is creating, because it's okay to create jobs, but if jobs are precarious, are not well paid, they suffer from sexual harassment, objectification. Also, it's difficult they are like putting in risk their health, their physical and mental health. It's not a work that it's making women like it's not empowering women. So the action is to focus on the sorry, with English it's it's tricky, is to focus on the working conditions of working class women. So like fighting for these work conditions will change the situation. The employment is, but we want rights and we want better conditions for women in the sector. So I would go to this part to analyze what is happening and speak up.
Yeah. We will discuss all those things when we will be working in the group.
Yes, sure.
But then, okay, another question is for everybody and says, are women leading tourism projects a positive factor to achieve more equality and fair working conditions? Well, of course, but because as we said, it has been demonstrated that having better positive better conditions is achieving the quality of the whole society and not just the work of women. And but what do you think, Hannelore? Can you also see the question? Women leading tourism projects can be a positive factor to achieve more equality and fair working conditions.
Yes, I obviously think so, and I think, well, it really only works if it's women in all levels of decision making. Of course, it's not going to help if it's somehow maybe a male-led initiative, like let's empower women and we'll put a few women together and then we'll do something. No, of course not. It should be done by women, from their own motives, from their own challenges together. And then when they really can decide their own terms, their own conditions, their own goals, and put in their own strengths, then it can really make a difference, I think. But I don't believe you can empower people empower themselves. So it's only if it's women have all the control or have influence on the situation, then I think it can make a difference.
But at the same time, we know that it's very much needed top-down help. In many countries, you consider that women don't even have the power to have a land or their own enterprises. And for example, only 10% of women entrepreneurs have the capital they need to grow their business, and sometimes banks are not lending money and so on. So it's a subject, again, with plenty of women experts who could be on boards of banks or cooperatives or other organizations, bringing their own support and their own management organization in this kind of bottom down or bottom up initiatives. So we will discuss all these things, I hope, with many plenty of people who have experience on this, because we actually need people working on tourism to go on and organize, better organized, right? So
yes, and if I can add something, Iaia, you also referred to it in the beginning. We certainly need male allies as well. Not only women can be feminists, of course, that's what we all agree on. So it's as important to have male support and allyship as well to reach our goals and to have all the same vision.
Yeah, of course. That's equality, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay, Sabrina, do we have more questions? Do you have any question for us?
No, we are with those questions. I don't know if between you would like to make questions to the other speakers, or if everything was clear and you will keep working on the working group. That's up to you in this moment to decide.
Yeah, I wanted to ask Carla about the Las Kelly's experience, because that's one of the win-to-win stories, isn't it? They actually had a good result after all their fighting and protesting. So how
Yes.
about, what are they doing now? What's happening? What's going on? Is there something new coming in Spain after the Las Calles experience?
Well, this work, I started in Alba 1 year ago or something, but the one that's been working with Las Kellys is Ernest Cañada, that is the coordinator of Alba Sud. But of course, I know a little bit of the history, as it's a important, because it was yes, a win-to-win, a happy history, more or less, as after this fight, they accomplished to, because one of the main problems of the housekeepers was due to the outsourcing model. They had lots of workloads, and it was very physical, and they really had health problems that were not recognized as I don't know how to say it, but like health problems related to jobs. They were not considered as some health problems due to the job. So after all the demonstrations and all this process of organization themselves, because it was something of themselves, they start sharing their experiences, and they found out that it was something very common to take pills in the morning, take pills to sleep, and it was a really, really hard work. So they create this community, and they fight for their rights, and finally they finish like the government approved, like it was related to their work, their health problems. Sorry. So that was like the big win, like the big victory to accomplish that. And nowadays, well, now in Spain, due to COVID, the situation, it's getting worse, because many women, as they have these partial contract times, they are not working now. They couldn't have these social helps because they didn't have a contract when the COVID started, because it was in March that here there are not many tourists. So now it's a hard situation due to the context, but they are still fighting and sharing their histories, and yeah, we are with them. We are like now more than, we're like friends. So
To me, it has been very, very interesting during the COVID lockdown to interview women, because we wrote a guidebook for women and of course men travelers. But the most interesting thing, it has been to find out how resilient women are, because I was talking the same day, I was talking with someone in Iceland, or in Peru, or in Benin, of the Eco Benin Association that you have in France. And so it was incredible, because they were telling me the same things. They were all working, of course, lockdown, they couldn't see people outside, etc. But then, for example, from Peru, they were saying, well, we are living like our grandmothers again. We are, growing potatoes and going out with the sheep. But we are just waiting for tourists to come back. And so meanwhile, what did they do? They made some little souvenirs, and they were sending them to a tour operator in France. I know. And she was actually selling to tourists who were wishing to go to Peru, and they might maybe go next year. And the same was in Iceland, and the same was in New Zealand. I even had a woman who was not working, and she was saying that she was going to close down, that she was never restart her job. And then she actually designed a new kind of tour for women travelers with me, for my guide. And now that in New Zealand they are traveling again, even though just internal tourism, but she's actually using this itinerary that she made with me, and so on. Each of them, it was wonderful because each of them, each of the women I was talking to, they were really reinventing new jobs. Then, of course, also those with big hotels, maybe they were closing down, but they were organizing something in the gardens, etc. They're all things that they are not new now because it's 1 year that we hear about them. But when they thought about them, it was 1 year ago. So it was very nice to see how they reacted. This is just to say that women are actually good in tourism, and they can really make many good examples. And so that's it. I suppose you don't have more questions or more examples, but we will talk about them when we will meet again with the working group, right?
Yep, that's it. I don't know if Iaia, if you have anything else to say. You're fine? Okay.
Yeah.
So I will go with the closing part right now. I want to thank everyone for participating into this CafecISTO. I want to remind you that these are monthly events. Then we have next one in March 17th, and it's going to be CafecISTOs Regional. We will have CafecISTO Europe, CafecISTO Americas, and also CafecISTO of Africa. So our members are welcome to join. We will be sending all the information through our newsletter. So I invite you to subscribe to our newsletter, to follow us on our social media, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, and also YouTube, where you can find this information and much more. Also, again, to invite everyone to join the working group on gender and diversity, you can write us at info@isto.international, and we will lead you to Iaia so you can start working on this working group. And again, thank you to everyone. I hope this will bring further action, and we will start to fight against the inequalities in gender and in tourism. So thank you very much and have a good day. Bye-bye.